Sometimes find it difficult to pronounce my name. It's called Leguit. And I'm head in CE Delft. I'm head of the department that works on renewable fuels and sustainable cities. It's two fields where we're working on. I'm going you today in 12 minutes on a study we did. Can I have? Yes. Oh, yes. Well, I try. This is easier, I think, for me. Content is, I will tell you very shortly about our company that you know who is in front of you, very shortly. About 10 minutes about the study we performed for the European Commission. Optimal use of biogas from waste streams that fed into the winter package, the clean energy package. And I go into the clean energy package also. And there it is. And Jacob asked me to take a... Is there something going wrong? No, it's still there. Okay, to look into my crystal ball and give you a personal view of what I see as becoming important the coming years. That doesn't work. Okay, who's going to help?
And while you do things, because it's always nice to talk about other things when Tule's doing this, whenever there is a word, when he mentions something like the winter package or an abbreviation from the EU vocabulary, just raise your hand and I'll make sure that he explains it a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Shortly, very short about CE Delft. We are existing almost 40 years now. We are a not-for-profit company, which sounds like a bit unbelievable for some bodies, but it's our own company and we have a mission just to work towards a sustainable future. Our role is not that of an NGO, not that of a political party. We would just provide data, we provide visions, we provide policy recommendations that other people can make use of. We work, as Jacob said, both for governments, as for large industries, as for NGOs, and that means we have to be completely independent. If we write the message from an NGO, we cannot get commissions from for example, the industry and the other way around. So we are just ourselves, and we are glad with that. The project I'm going to tell you is optimal use of biogas from waste streams. Our client here was the European Commission, DG Energy, and it was important at that time. It was 2015, 2016 that we did a study. Because the Renewable Energy Directive had to be renewed, and there was a large package, the Clean Energy Package, as it's now known, or the Winter Package, that provides proposals for what is going to be the European policy on renewables and energy after 2020. The main deliverables were an overview of current biomass, biogas and biomethane production in the European Union for every member state, all 28. Potentials for 2020, 2030. What could be the potential contribution of biogas and biomethane towards these 2020, 2030 goals? Overviews of current barriers, policy options, and at the end, policy recommendations. Now, we did this together, I have to say, with two partners. Wageningen University is the agricultural university in the Netherlands, and Eclarion, which is a German partner. I have two slides on policy recommendations, and I will skip these mostly, because I think you are well aware that you are ahead of most European countries. So if we provide policy recommendations on biogas for other European member states, I think Sweden is one of the examples we use from look what might be going on in your country. So I will skip these, but I kept them into the presentation to just, it was an important part of the study. Very easy, yes. Current biogas in 2014, 7.6% of total renewable energy in the EU was coming from biogas, 2014. You see here an overview per member state, and what you see, it's most of it is coming from Germany. And of course, this partly because of the size of Germany, it's a large country, but if you look for France, for example, more or less the same size, but very less biogas production. And that illustrates that it's not only the size of the country and the number of people that live there and produce, for example, sewage sludge, but very much the policy of a country. And Germany has a policy towards biogas, and on the next slide you will see that very large part of it is coming from energy crops, which is under debate, not only in Germany but also in most of the European countries. If you go for Germany, UK and Italy, those three countries produce 77% of the EU total of biogas. That was in 2014. Of course, things are shifting a bit over time. Mostly for anaerobic digestion of manure and maize. Maize is a term? Yeah, okay. And also landfill gas. And you understand landfill gas is going down as a function of time. There's a lot of potential still on landfill gas and existing landfill sites where you can extract biogas, but the landfill directive says you are not supposed to make more landfill sites. The feedstock, and this is excluding landfill, but the feedstock also here on the 100% division and per member state, you see that a lot of all the green parts of the columns is energy crops, mostly maize. And then there's cattle and pig manure and organic waste. If you go to Sweden, over here to the right, you see, besides landfill gas, you see a lot of also organic waste there as a large stream. I will come back to, and I have to remind you, this is based on energy content. So not on volumes or tons or weight, it's based on energy content in the feedstocks. For example, if you look at manure, it has a very low energy content compared to the same volume or weight or maize, for example. So this is important what you have as a basis for these kind of pictures, but it shifts. Biogas use, and there you really see how different you are in Sweden compared to the rest of the European, the other 27 European countries. Most of the biogas produced in the European Union goes to electricity, mostly on cogeneration of heat and power. So there's electricity, there's heat, and small part of it in other European countries it goes to biomethane, mostly for transport, but also just for the built environment, for example. Then if you go to Sweden, you see only a small part is used for producing electricity and heat, and a large part goes into biomethane, which in your country, for the very large part, goes into the transport sector. I have to admit that in the Netherlands we are struggling with our renewable energy targets, and especially also the target in transport. And you are already there. The 10% renewable energy in transport is no problem for the Swedish people. So I think you should be proud of that. And that is, as I said, also if you look for the comparison between Germany and France in the first slide, that's because of politics. We have large plans in the Netherlands, but we have some problems with implementing them. And I think you should be proud of yourself that you implemented a long, stable policy, and it pays out because you reach your targets. Then the growth, we developed some scenarios, and that was a bit tricky because I said Germany has a large volume of biogas production, but that's based on mostly on energy crops. For these scenarios, the agreement with the European Commission was there should be no growth on energy crops and also on landfill. As I said, there is a potential on existing landfill sites, but no extra landfill sites. And also for example, wastewater use from industry. Sometimes there are on waste streams there are better uses for. So we took that into these scenarios. So if you use all kind of biomass that is potentially available, the volumes would be much larger. But it's not acceptable to use that. So things are changing. Then if you look to the European Union as a whole, there's a factor of roughly 3 on enhancement of biogas production and biomethane production compared to 2014 levels. For Sweden, I have the numbers here to the right. It's in kilotons of oil equivalent, which is the language they speak in Brussels. I'm sorry for that. But there's a potential growth up to more than a factor of 5, which comes, for example, from organic waste compared to 2014. We can discuss details afterwards, and all these, the whole study, and also this, the potentials on feedstocks are in other reports, which are all public, so you can look it up if you want. The greenhouse gas reduction we also calculated, because the Commission wanted to know from all these volumes of biogas, if we are focusing on the Paris agreements, where can we best put it? So, of course, the European Commission are not the people who put it somewhere, that are the national governments and that are you all. But they wanted to have an idea what help. It comes up again. If I don't touch it, it goes well. If you look here, I won't go into the details, but this is contribution to greenhouse gas reductions in the European Union as a whole. And the largest contributions if you put all the available biogas into the transport sector. So it seems that you made a good choice somewhere in the past to develop that policies. And that is mainly because if you look to electricity, the average mix of electricity production goes to renewables slightly. So in 2030, you have a large volumes of renewable electricity, and extra renewable electricity will gradually cannibalize on other renewable energy sources. Whereas for transport, that's still a problem in the European Union. You're different. But if you replace diesel, you have a large contribution to CO2 emissions. And that can be in a part of CNG, replacing diesel, or in LNG on large trucks and ships. Something more to say here? No. I'm speeding up a little because I have only 12 minutes and there's so much to tell. Main policy recommendations, I want to skip these, but the last part was important, I think. Let member states decide where the biogas is used. So have overall targets, overall goals from the European Union, but the Union goes as fast as the slowest member states, maybe the middle group, but not the front runners. And since you and Sweden are one of the front runners, I think you should not wait for the European Union to develop your own goals and own targets. For the member state policies, the most important, what we heard from all stakeholders, we interviewed a lot of stakeholders in all European countries, they say you need to implement stable and effective policies that stay there for a long time to create investment security. You do it with tax exemptions and taxing. That's a strategy that works. You proved it. I know you have a debate with the European Union on state aid and those kind of things, but I think you should, as my personal view, you should stay there because it creates investment stability, which is the main driver for producing, to growing an industry on this. 2 slides, Jacob. The clean energy package, also known as the winter package. Biogas is one of the sources of clean energy. Depends on the country how large it is, but in all countries it is a source. And it's within the scope of the Renewable Energy Directive, the Fuel Quality Directive, the Clean Power for Transport Directive, the Clean Vehicle Directive. It's everywhere. But the European Union does not make specific targets on biogas. They make specific targets on greenhouse gas emission reduction or renewable energy production, not specifically on biogas. That's for the national governments, as are the policy instruments. There's an obligation on, in the clean energy package on European transport fuel providers to provide an increasing share of renewable and low carbon fuels, where biogas is one of the sources there. There's a debate on ILUC, indirect land use change, with a cap on the contribution of food-based biofuels. I don't think, well, it does especially affect the production of biogas in Germany. They will have a problem with this. And there's also a debate on strengthening the criteria for bioenergy sustainability, which also affects biogas production. It's still, well, the debate is still open, but it's going towards sustainable biofuels and not food-based, not land-based. Last sheet, personal view, my own personal crystal ball. Paris had opened minds. We had discussion in Brussels also with national governments on the 2020 targets in 2020. And after Paris, we are finding ourselves back in discussions on how to become climate neutral. Whereas with CO2, equivalence is the main driver for policies and not targets for energy efficiency. That's also important, but CO2 is the main driver, becoming climate neutral. We also see that in industry, on both energy and feedstocks, and we also see that in the transport sector. Whereas before Paris, transport sector went up to 65% CO2 reduction in 2050, not more. Shipping and air traffic is also into scope for towards clean fuels. For biogas, that's important, especially the shipping area there. Somehow people saw that electricity is not all there is, which some people still, especially politicians, still seems to think sometimes if you see the debates. So biogas is there and is there to stay. There's growing interest in all markets on bio-LNG for trucks and ships, and also in hydrogen, blue hydrogen from natural gas with CCS, and the transition towards green hydrogen. The debates on the clean energy package I mentioned, and I think to close down.
Let me put in a question
biogas is one of the solutions for our future. So.
I was going to ask you, before you do the thank you slide, does the EU really understand? I mean, it's there in all the papers. They like biogas. They think it's really good. Do they finally understand, thanks to your reports and stuff? Do they really take this seriously?
Yes, I think so.
Finally.
It's not because of only of our report, of course, but I think it's because of these Paris agreements. If you look to climate neutral, you cannot look at the easy parts. We all know solar cells, we all know wind energy, hydro in Sweden and in the Nordic countries. But now we realize that we use a large volume of oil for transport, and we use large volume of gas for space heating. Yeah. And that's affected also here. And then if you're aware of a problem, you're looking for alternatives, and then biogas comes into view.
Thank you, Cor. We're going to have a debate towards the end, so we'll save the question after the other two presentations. Thank you very much, Cor. Okay. Positive signals, and now over to a country where we have even more positive signals. You're very humble, you say that Sweden is ahead. When France decides to do something, it happens. If the farmers are not pleased in France, they dump manure on the Champs-Élysées. I mean, it's a country where you actually get things done. So it will be very interesting to listen to you, Pierre. Pierre Meyers from Air Liquide.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Pierre-Emmanuel Meyers. It's okay. So within Air Liquide, I'm in charge of the biogas to clean transportation market, meaning that what we do is we purchase biogas, we transform that biogas into biomethane, either compressed or liquefied, and then we sell that biomethane into our network of fueling stations. So basically, I'll try to explain to you what is happening in France. But before to get into this, just a few words to say that first, we are very modest compared to Sweden. The biomethane to transport market in France is nascent. Very few trucks, very few cars as compared to here. And second, we are going to talk here about trucks, because this is where we see the future for biogas for transport. So effectively, 3 years ago, there were no station, no fueling station, or barely no station in France for trucks with natural gas or biogas, and no trucks, obviously. And in the last 3 years, we have ended up to have, at the end of this year, more than 1,500 trucks, and almost 35 stations, 50 next year, and more than 2,000 trucks next year. So which is really the signal of a market takeoff. We can't say that this is happening, because still it's 1,000 trucks as compared to 500,000 trucks, so it's very small, it's a niche market. But still, we can see a sign of market takeoff, and if you see the projection, they are very aggressive, either in terms of trucks or in terms of fueling station. And so what have been the driving force? And before to be a climate issue, as it was mentioned earlier in the presentation, really the driving force first has been air quality and an healthcare issue. How to unpollute, depollute the city centers. And the major decision from Paris and other cities in France to ban diesel trucks from the city center. So in 2020, you will not be allowed to deliver goods in the city using diesel trucks. As a result, all the main supermarket chains and other transportation companies had to change to some other alternative fuels. And there is only one credible solution. If you want to move away with a truck from diesel, today only natural gas or biogas is a credible and economical option. So naturally, all those companies, the Carrefour, Auchan and Casino, have requested their transportation companies to move to gas. And not only gas, but also biogas, because there is a nice story to tell for them. For example, a Carrefour like to claim that their trucks run with the waste coming from their stores or from their depot. This is an example of project that we have with them. You can see here what we call Potopin. Is a company that delivers carrots and leeks to Carrefour. And we are developing with them here a digester, which will produce biomethane, which will be injected into the grid and delivered to a station which is just above at 1 kilometer away and very close to the new depot of Carrefour. So meaning that in 1 kilometer radius, we will have all that circular economy representation. So ban of diesel from the city centers, supermarket chain and transportation company taking measures, but to do so, it needs to be some kind of incentives to purchase the trucks, because today trucks are more expensive and there is an uncertain second-hand value for those trucks. So a certain number of mechanisms have been put in place in France to facilitate the access to the truck. And the last one, for example, is that appel à projet, which is a call for project from the Environmental Agency, which will finance, let's say, a quarter or a third of the overcost of the truck for the transportation company, as long as they commit to a certain minimum number of trucks, which is 25 per station. There are other types of incentives, but one which has been also important is coming from the client of the transportation companies, which was to extend the length of their contract to give them more visibility so that they de-risk their investment into the trucks. So this is good for the incentives, it has worked, but the TCO needs still to work. And on that slide that nobody understands, and took me a while to do it, you can see what would be the price of the natural gas if we would have to compete with diesel. And you see that even though the molecule of natural gas in the beginning is much higher than the oil, at the end you can be ISO total cost of ownership just because of the difference of tax on the energy. So you see for the natural gas is 10 times lower. So you will pay 50 cents per liter of diesel of tax, where on natural gas you will pay 5, which means that this can make the TCO work and then that market to take off. So this is very important. I think it's a kind of a facilitation for the transportation company to move away from the diesel. And as a result, the volume of trucks purchased has a lot increased. Last year only, this company, the Groupe Perronneau, which is a large transportation company, they have 3,000 trucks in France. And XPO, they have maybe 5,000 trucks in France. So Jackie Perronneau purchased the 250 trucks just for one client, the Casino, which is a large retailer. And XPO has purchased 30 trucks just for to deliver Auchan, for example, and Casino as well. So there are trucks, but still a lot of transportation companies realize that it's not enough. The trucks, the offer is limited, even though we have that new launch this week from Volvo. But there are a limited number of trucks. They are not all efficient. They don't deliver the powertrain which is sometimes expected by transportation company. So to have a wider development of this market, we will need a much wider offer in terms of trucks. In terms of transportation, a big share of the transportation is made of refrigerated transportation for food, for example. And you have to know that the mechanical refrigeration unit, in general, work with oil and is not submitted to any kind of regulation. That means that unit pollute the same as 20 diesel 6 truck. So if you want to have clean trucks, if you want to move from diesel to biogas, then you need to change the way you do the refrigeration of your truck. So this is why we provide also the solution to clean the refrigeration unit using liquid nitrogen in the trucks. And we put all those gases in our fueling station and to move from oil, liquid oil-based fuel to gaseous, renewable gaseous fuels for the transportation. So just to tell you that it has happened very fast in the last 3 years. We have already developed 12 stations, 45 I said in the beginning for the whole market at the end of this year, 0 3 years ago, and we have 20 more in the pipeline. But the real question now is, will there be enough biogas to serve this market? Because this is what we hear all the time. You will not be able to produce the biomethane that we need for this market. So just to give you a sense of volume, every time you put together one station, you need a big biogas site, assuming that the station is loaded and they run with 100% biogas. So it gives you order of magnitude. So we talked about 1,500 trucks. You can imagine the number of sites we need to develop. So that needs to be, we need to have a kind of measure and policy to help the development of biogas plant. And we are very late as compared to Sweden and France. But the first question was about, will there be enough biomass and waste? And if you do some small calculation, you can see that in France, today we have a lot of biomass potential. It's one of the first countries in Europe for the biomass potential. And we could feed the equivalent of half of the market, the truck market, 500,000 trucks, I said. So half of them we could feed with 100% biogas. So it's not a problem of feedstock. It's not a problem of regulatory framework. Measures have been put in place to help biogas plant to develop. There is a fed-in tariff, which makes the biogas which is produced competitive against natural gas. So this is very good. You have access to a cheap biomethane, very different from Sweden. You can attach to that biomethane, to that natural gas, green certificates that you can value with a premium to the client. And that biomethane, the regulatory framework, puts that into the transportation market, meaning that if you do a premium on this product, you'll not pay any, you will not share the value created by that product. In fact, you'll keep all the value for you if it's in transportation. Otherwise, you'll have to reimburse part of this value to the state. So, fed-in tariff to support the development of biogas plant and measure to help that product to go into the transportation market. So the first plant has been developed to inject into the grid in 2012, so very late. But still it's developing. We inject now with, it's 35 now the number, and it's not anymore 26. We have 35 plants injecting into the grid. And the installed capacity today is at the order of 500 gigawatt per hour per year, which means that the equivalent of 2,000 trucks, in fact, with 50% bio. So, which means that we have, at the same time, the truck market develop and the fueling station develop, we have the capacity of production which increase the same way. So, a few takeaways. the first driving force has been an health issue and the willing from large cities to unpollute the city center. Transportation companies then have taken measures driven by their clients. We have the right tax framework. We need more, maybe a vehicle, available vehicle and efficient vehicle. Everything has been put in place to provide and deliver a favorable TCO for transportation companies. And at the same time, then the infrastructure has quickly developed. For the biomethane production, you need to have enough biomass. This is not an issue. The regulatory framework to help a biogas plant to develop, and the incentive to orient biomethane towards transportation market. It's pretty much a summary of what has happened, and we hope it will continue this way in the coming years. So I don't know if you have we said the question is later, right?
Thank you very much. I mean, there were so many slides. Every slide.
That's maybe fascinating.
Volvo and Scania are nodding their heads and saying yes. I guess Paris is the difference between Sweden and France. I mean, the fact that the city of Paris said that we may stop the city for diesel vehicles, and then Carrefour and Casino, that's ICA and Coop, they said we have to deliver. And then all of a sudden they just started, together with you, started purchasing trucks.
Yes.
And unfortunately Volvo and Scania wasn't there, but Iveco was there, luckily. Now you're there, soon.
Yes, that's unfortunate because it will be even bigger because there are transportation companies saying, we don't want to go with those trucks, we want other trucks, they are not available. This is what I'm saying. There is here a market opportunity which is not tackled by all the OEMs.
But they are now bringing out the order books, so no problem at all. Very interesting. This is energy that we need, and thank you for learning from Sweden and then giving the energy back. And I'm so glad you have the time to, I mean, 35 plants, and it's increasing all the time. Thank you. I'll ask you to come back in a few minutes.
Okay.
And now let's move to Finland. Jukka Metsälä from Gasum. And I was saying before, for some reason, you decided to buy Scandinavian Biogas in Sweden. Air Liquide decided to buy Fordonsgas. There has to be something here that you can benefit from. And you have a very strong Nordic strategy. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what it's going to look like.
I think we bought the Swedish BIOGAS Internationella, not Scandinavian Biogas.
Oh, sorry.
Or at least I think.
That's
okay,
right.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is my... Yes, so my name is Jukka Metsälä and I come from the company called Gasum. As Jakob said, thank you for the opportunity to share my ideas relating to Nordic gas ecosystem development. Then as Jakob asked, I will tell a few words about the Gasum strategy. And because I'm responsible for biogas business in Gasum, I will tell you about circular economy topics. I don't have so much number in my slides, but I have enough slides for this presentation, I'm sure. Yes, good. So first, okay.
You have to be still.
Oh no, this is very difficult for me. Yeah, it's okay now. I think it works, yeah. So, as I said, I come from Gasum, and Gasum strategy is to expand the gas ecosystem, what we have. And we are operating in all Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Our strategy is based on the main 3 business units, which are natural gas, LNG, and biogas. We are a state-owned company. The revenue from last year was around 850 million euro, and our net profit was 100 million euro. Okay, why Nordic countries, and why the strategy relating to Nordic gas ecosystem? There is a huge growth potential in Nordic gas ecosystem. The gas, natural gas, plays around 4 to 5% role in total energy mix in Nordic countries. When we go to Europe, it's a 25% share in energy mix. If we see the Nordic countries, they are all similar, at least some level. We see that all countries, we need a low emission solution in road transport, industry, and also in marine sector. Sorry for that. I try to stay like that. Okay, and as you know, the gas solution creates the bridge towards the carbon neutral society. And now what's happening, especially in the industry sector, there are strong demand for low emission solution, and it's not anymore a corporate responsibility issue. It's not anymore a regulatory issue, but it's the crucial part of business concept. And in the same time, the consumer power is increasing and consumer wants more and more eco-friendly products. What happens in traffic segment, in road transport, thanks to the previous presentation, I think I don't have anything to add, but I would like to say that really in EU level there is a strong support to LNG, LBG in heavy-duty vehicle. And each country we have our own strategies. In Finland, the energy and climate strategy says that there will be around 20 times more gas cars in Finland by 2030. So the target is 50,000 gas cars. And we are just starting this thing because we have only 3,500 cars at the moment. So early steps. And then comes the marine, the regulation is tightening, and I would like to say that in the future almost all ships will use LNG as a fuel. Okay, then what Gasum is doing in Nordic? We are investing heavily in the Nordic gas ecosystem. We are a gas company. There's a long history, around more than 40 years we are importing gas from Russia and natural gas from Russia. And last year we sold 24 giga-terawatt-hour natural gas in Finland. In 2014 we did a Scangas acquisition. We went to LNG business in Nordic countries, and last summer we opened the first LNG terminal in Pori in Finland, and next will be opened next year in Tornio in Finland, supplying the heavy industry like Outokumpu, SSAB. Then you can see also the green balls on the map, and these are the biogas plants. We did our first acquisition in 2016 in Finland. Totally 7 biogas plants, and today we have 12 biogas plants plus 4 partner plants. Totally capacity for biomass processing is around 900,000 tons per year. We are producing 650 gigawatt-hour biogas annually at the moment. Okay, then there are a few examples how we are developing gas ecosystems, and my colleague Markus Olsson will show later today about the examples, but I would like to show a few of them. What we did, as Jakob said, we finalized our acquisition Swedish Biogas International in the early of this year. We have also increased our shareholding in Scangas company, and then we have also done some divestments relating our heat and retail gas sales business during this year. They are interesting case. Actually, our project in Turku, in Helsinki, was selected as a top priority project by Finnish Ministry of Employment and Economy. And this is a very interesting project because we are not only expanding the biogas production capacity, but we are investing in nutrient production, we are investing in liquefaction, and also the filling station in Turku area. So I would like to say that this is a local gas ecosystem development, a circular economy concept what we are doing. Relating to circular economy, I think the Arla, Hämeenlinnan osuusmeijeri, the dairy which produced the Arla milk products in Finland, they are using the biogas which are made from the own waste, so they are already implementing the circular economy. And then of course our new ship, bunkering ship, distribution ship, her name is Coralius, and we did also first ship-to-ship bunkering one month ago. And then comes the traffic segment. As I said, it's the key in our strategy. What we are doing in Finland, we have around 40 filling stations at the moment, and we launched last year in Gasum the program to build 35 new filling stations, and we have already opened 7 of them. But it's not only the infrastructure building, I would like to say. The strategy, if you build, they will come, doesn't work anymore. So it's also the partnerships, development of concept, not only partnership, but also offering. Markus will tell more about the fixed monthly fee pricing for consumers, what we are now doing in Finland. Then the operating environment is changing quite fast, and we have heard about the targets for decreasing the emission in traffic segment, and it comes from the EU level and national level. And I would like to say that we have very demanding targets in Nordic countries, in Norway, Finland, and Sweden. So there is a strong commitment for the cleaner transport. It's good that it's not only target setting, but there is also tools. In Finland, we can have investment subsidies for the production. We have now launched a new program that we can also have some subsidies for new filling station, what we are building. But not only for filling station, there's also very nice subsidy regimes we will implement that if you convert your old car from gasoline to gas, you will get 1,000 euro for conversion subsidy. And then there is also the demolition fee for old car, which is a double demolition fee when you change your old car to new gas car. So it's good that there is incentives, but it's not only the regulation again. We have to remember that we have to create a business model, we have to create the demand. And we started to build our biogas strategy in 2015. And the first thing what we did, I was very interested in the consumer behavior. We did a lot of study. What kind of consumers, where they eat, where they go, what they think. And we identified, we have 5 million inhabitants in Finland, and we identified 1.5 million Finns, and they really prefer eco-friendly products, and that was the sustainability was one main criteria. And was it something like 8,100 Finns, they were even ready to pay a bit more for the products which are sustainable. Today, for example, our filling station, the biogas is something like 15% more expensive than the natural gas. And would like to say that when we go to industry, I think the industry has already done a lot of investments for energy savings and also the emission decreasing in production. But the logistic plays now a key role in value chain when we calculate the emissions. For example, the food industry, I think it's a very good example. And it's good that we have heard already today that we have solution for that. Good. And then when we think about the Nordic biogas market, I'm still converting your figures, kiloton, how much is energy. Sorry, I'm the energy guy and would like to say that I think that the biogas market size in Nordic countries is something like between 3 to 4 terawatt-hour today. And of course, the most of that, more than half, comes from Sweden. But then I have understood, based on different analyses, that there's a huge potential. The economic viable potential is around 20 terawatt-hour in this market area, for biogas I mean. And if we speak about the theoretical potential, it's even 75 terawatt-hour potential, what we have in these 3 countries for biogas. So it's a huge potential. And it's good that we have a different kind of players in the market, and it's important that we are developing that market. But then if I think of Gasum strategy and what we are doing, we are producing the biogas in Finland and Sweden. In Finland, our feedstock base is mainly the sludge and bio-waste from industry and municipalities, and the gas goes to industry, as we saw in the first presentation. While in Sweden, we are producing gas from manure and grass silage and other side streams, and gas goes mainly to traffic segments. So there is a lot of knowledge sharing, best practices, process development, what we are doing now, and there are a lot of synergies between these 2 countries. And then one topic relating to market, we just discussed in the morning with one lady that how the certificate market works in Finland, Norway, and Sweden, and there are a lot of differences. And of course, I would like to see the harmonized certificate market in one day, but we'll see. Is it only my dream, or what will happen? Okay, finally, as you know, gas is a volume business, and as I say that Gasum we have a natural gas clients, LNG clients, and biogas clients, and that's also our portfolio in the future. When I think our biogas clients, I think that they really need natural gas or LNG at least as a backup purposes. And then when I think about the role of biogas among our natural gas and LNG customers, it's more clear that the biogas will play more and more role among these customers in the future. So it's logic that we operate in Nordic countries. Still a few minutes. So then about the circular economy, that's of course, this was the base of our biogas strategy we started. In 2015, we didn't have any industrial customers in Finland when we started this strategy. And that was the reason, because the biogas was something like between 20 to 116 or 115% more expensive than natural gas for these customers. This due to taxation. And of course, during these kind of financial times, you really have to find the business plan how to sell more expensive energy to the customers. And we started with circular economy. And I'm very happy about the biogas technology. When I see the EU level circular economy directive, this technology is among the top technologies in this directive. And I think that that's why, because we can maximize really the value for biomass when producing the biogas. We see the highest value for biogas is in traffic segment, in transportation, that's true. But when we go to industry, there is a possibility to build a business concept, increase the sustainability in value chain, speak about the waste to energy, waste to nutrient kind of solution, and bring really the business value. So when we started, we couldn't go to energy manager and say, hey, by the way, I'm Jukka, I come from Gasum, I have more expensive energy to you. But I had to, this is actually nice story if I have few minutes time to tell that. Then we went to sustainability people, our sales guy. And then we have a lot of meetings, and I was very happy that now sales guys, now you are doing good work. Then I asked that, hey, we didn't have any deal during past month. What have you done? So lot of meetings, but no deal. And then the problem was that they met wrong people. They couldn't make decision. Then we go to CEO level and production director, marketing, brand manager, and they had, we would like to bring more value to your products. And then it started. Okay, so what we are now also doing, we don't have this, let's say that it's not only the biogas, it's not only the feedstock. What is happening now, you have a well-functioning biofertilizer market here in Sweden. We have also a biofertilizer market in Finland, but now the industry are more and more interested in organic nutrients. And we have already invested that, and we have several projects ongoing for evaporators, strippers. We have even a pyrolysis pilot ongoing in Turku, and different business concepts with industry relating to organic nutrients. Okay, this is the last one. So, yeah, I would like to sum up what I said. So I see that what we have to do, we really have to build the demand for gas. And I see that the most important segments are industry, road transport, and marine segment. And then comes, of course, the infrastructure question. What we are doing today in Gasum, we are investing actually heavily in off-grid infrastructure. It means the LNG terminal, all kind of container-based logistics solutions, CNG, CBG solutions, filling station, customer solutions. And then we have to ensure the efficient energy sourcing, natural gas, LNG, and biogas as well. And finally, to market development, I would like to see that the biogas, this 20 terawatt-hour biogas potential, let's say in Nordic countries, will be produced in the place where the feedstock is available. And then the gas will be used where the demand is. It can be in marine, it can be in road transport or industrial users. So we need a certificate market. It's funny. I hope this is even more funny.
And you have a very strong commitment from the Finnish government. They have a long-term bioeconomy strategy, and that must be the reason, in a way, that you're pushing this so hard in the past few years. It's a quick development.
Actually, it's not a reason for that.
No?
No. It's the consumer power. It's the demand for this kind of solution. We really need to, now there's a huge potential, and now the question is that how we build the market based on this potential. And if we don't do anything, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't work.
Good.
That's the reason.
Thank you. You can stay on stage. We'll have the other international speakers coming up on stage too. And in the meantime, talk around the table, and I want you to think about some questions and also maybe summarize what are the takeaways from the 3 presentations you've heard. Use 4 minutes to talk around the table, get to know each other a little bit. What are the takeaways, and do you have a question? We'll choose a couple of tables who wants to speak.
Happy, Jakob?
Quick. Okay. Okay, let's see now. Is there...
Let's study. So
We're going to have a discussion. Now you have to stop talking.
it's public.
This is the way it should be. You're starting projects already. We're going to I have some questions for these guys, but let me start with one table. Anybody volunteering? Do you have some takeaways, some thoughts, a question? Any table over? Otherwise, I will choose a table, and then it's up to you to think of something to ask. We have a volunteer, and there is a microphone coming your way, because this is all streamed, so we need to have it on. And say who you are and where you work.
My name is Fredrik Högberg. I work at the environmental administration here in Göteborg. I have a question concerning the vocabulary. Is it should we consider changing how we talk about biogas, meaning skipping the bio-LNG or talking about compressed biogas instead? Is that a non-issue, or is it actually important statement for you as a as we're leaving the fossil era into a more sustainable future?
Both Pierre and Jukka, you talked about that a bit.
For us, okay, I use all the time the biogas word, but simply biogas normally is what it get out of the digester, and in fact the appropriate terminology would be biomethane, compressed biomethane or liquefied biomethane, and I think we should stick to that, because biogas for everything, it's confusing.
And Jukka, you said that this is extra benefit for the CEOs that you're talking to.
I was thinking, thank you for the question. That's something I really have to think how to brand this bio-LNG or LBG, or how does it? It's a very good question. We have to think.
So you don't have an answer?
I don't know. I don't know. We are speaking today LBG or bio-LNG or LNG. There are many terms what we are using.
So what you use, Cor, in Brussels and when you talk to your stakeholders?
Bio-LNG, because if you use it LBG, no one understands what you're talking about. I think that's a transition there. I use most of the time, I use both. Bio-LNG for the people who are not used to LBG, and I say, but actually it is LBG. And it takes some time before people get used to that new acronym.
So we're in a transition phase. No simple answer to you, Fredrik, but we're in the transition phase. Very good. The fast development, I asked before when you weren't listening, is there any other country moving as fast as Finland and France are doing now? Cor, I mean, any other markets you see, the UK or?
Well, in the UK, biogas production is going rapidly up. They're an island, so they have the feeling that they should take care of their own energy production, and biogas is one of the means they have. It's going up very fast. And I just mentioned we are working on a study. We were commissioned by the Port Authority of Rotterdam, which is the second largest port in the world, and they had a few, also because of the Paris Agreement, we bunker 10 megatons of heavy fuel oil per year in Rotterdam. It's really an extremely large volume, and they want to have that replaced by renewable fuels. For example, for shipping bio-LNG, CBG, if you, of LBG, sorry. And they asked us what kind of business model should we develop to do that. It will take some decades, we think. And then can we use it, can we do that by digestion of waste streams in the Netherlands only? Or should we import the biomethane from elsewhere? Probably also from gasification. And that affects not only the Netherlands, but also all countries that are able to export biomethane. For example, Sweden, for example, Finland.
But then we come to the question, inland waters, you have lots of ship transport inland waters. Jukka, you said that all ships will be running on LNG, LBG. And if we cannot use, the EU is not fond of us using crops, but we are going to have a demand problem. I mean, are we going to have enough supply? For, let's say, 2025, when ships are using biogas, all the trucks are using, or many of the trucks are using biogas, will there be enough supply? Pierre, how are you going to deal with, I saw your curve. In 2025, are you going to supply enough biogas in France?
So for the biomethane production, we believe there is a big biomass potential in France. I think there is also a lot of biomass available in other countries which is not leveraged to do that type of product. That doesn't mean it will all serve all those markets. So I think there is still room for many types of fuel, and each of those fuel will take their share of the market. There will be clients asking for bio, others will not care about the bio, but it will take its niche market. Biomethane will take its share of the market, and it will have a place and a role to play in transport, for sure, but it will not be all bio.
And you talked about the potential
what
for
we
the
are
Nordics.
doing at the time, so we are expanding our feedstock base all the time and testing the new feedstock in our production. And the question that will we have enough biogas in the future? I hope that not. It means that there is a huge demand for biogas, but as I said, based on the analysis in Nordic countries, the theoretical potential is even 75 terawatt-hour, which is already quite high.
Do you feel a competition between biofuels in Finland, or are you beyond that? Are the plans so?
Of course, there is will be a competition, but as I said, the biogas technology is very efficient technology, relating the nutrients and not only the energy but the nutrients also.
Yeah. And you mentioned circular economy. That's of course very important for both the government, municipalities, and the market. Any other table or any other person in the back?
Anna Schnüre from the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. If we are increasing the biogas production, we will have an additional product that we also have in more volumes, so the digestate. It was interesting to hear, Gasum, you said that there was an interest from the industry in regard to this product, not only the agriculture. I'm curious about the rest of Europe, like Paris. If you really produce a lot of biogas in a city like Paris, what do you do with the residue?
So today in France, for every biogas site you want to develop, you must have a very clear plan, a very clear spreading plan for the digestate. Otherwise, you will not be allowed to develop the project. So it's taken into account, and generally in France, most of the projects are farm-based projects. So generally, there is a direct use of the digestate by the producer. But it's not always the case. But in general, this return to farmland, and for the time being, that works this way, yes.
Cor, any comment on that?
Yes, I think it's very important, both as it's a product from biogas production, but also there's a need in agriculture. The fertilizer, the European Fertilizer Directive is going through an update nowadays, and there will be some constraints on use of digestions. In the Netherlands, we have a large problem that if you use sewage sludge, for example, for digestion, you cannot use the digestate just to as a fertilizer for your plants. And so we have lists, kind of positive lists. If you put that into your digester, then you can use the digestate, difficult word for me, as a fertilizer, and the same will happen on the European level. I think that's good. They have a criterion what kind of digestate you can use, and there's a market for it, and not only a national market but also a European market. You can export it, and you should be aware that we have in the whole of the European Union there's a problem with soil, how do you call the organic content of the soil, and this is one of the ways to deal with that.
But Jukka was talking about certification, and you would like to see homogeneous certifications so you can work on different markets. Is that also happening? You have a very rapid growth. I mean, what we saw from France is extremely rapid. Is the certification of the manure, is that coming along? Are the byproducts being developed the same speed?
I think there's a wish, and the practice is not yet there. That's a polite answer.
That's interesting. So whenever anybody has a question, raise your hand. Oh.
Okay, hello, Per Wennerberg, Biogas, Oslofjord. A question to mainly Air Liquide. You showed a slide on cooling of trucks with nitrogen, but as about 40% of the biogas, raw biogas, is carbon dioxide that we don't today not really use. We just waste it when we upgrade our to biomethane. But we can easily trap that carbon dioxide and use it for something like, for instance, cooling of trucks.
Certainly, yes.
And there are existing very efficient cooling units for carbon dioxide. How do you look upon that, to combine the distribution of biogas, biomethane, and CO2 to the same customers?
So CO2 could naturally be valued in a biogas site. It has just to be economically viable, and so meaning that you need to have a CO2 market nearby, and you need to have a significant size for the project. Otherwise, you know, you have a lot of supplies of CO2 from everywhere, which is at a low cost. It's a kind of commodity for the industry. So if you want to compete with that, with the biogas coming from the biogas plant, you need some kind of effect of scale to make it viable. But it works, yes, for sure. We deliver CO2 for refrigerated transportation as well, no problem.
I think, may I have a comment on that?
Yes.
If you have an area with greenhouses for horticulture, you also need CO2. Most of the time now it comes from a fossil source, and you can replace that by bio-CO2. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of horticulture on the glass. There's a lot of interest in bio-CO2 from LNG, LBG production.
Maybe an additional comment for the CO2, which I think is important. So because everyone developing a biogas site wants to value the CO2. And I think it's clever, and it's ultimately this is what we should be doing. And ourselves, we supply some CO2 from UK biogas plant as well. So it works. The issue really will become regarding the type of feedstock you will be using to produce that CO2 and the end market for that CO2. You can't imagine today, and I'm not saying it's a product issue or it's a technology issue, it works, but from market acceptance, I think, the end consumer, we are all end consumer, will not be ready to see in a Coca-Cola bottle CO2 coming from waste from landfill. So I think there is some kind of social acceptance as well, which is not only the issue, because there is also the potential contamination which should be controlled in terms of, I would say, the quality and hazardous measure you would put in place to control this risk. But the CO2 will be only maybe for industrial application at this point. I think greenhouse is a great one, cooling is a great one, but CO2 in direct contact with food, I'm not sure we are ready for that yet with the AD plant.
But I guess the demand is large enough from industry as it is, and the agriculture sector as it is now. It's a large demand.
The greenhouse application works
Yes.
very well. There are several examples in UK, I guess maybe in Netherlands, but it's a case-per-case basis. You need to be nearby the greenhouse, you need to have a direct access to the CO2, and then it's a wonderful project.
If you take the 1.5 degrees goal of Paris seriously, you have to think also about how to go to negative emissions, because we are running into an overshoot. There's no denying it, and then you can use that kind of CO2 stream, bio-CO2 streams, to store underground.
Yeah.
It's one of the ways of doing it. It's kind of far ahead, it seems to be, but I don't think we can escape that.
Well, with this fast development, I'm not so sure it's that far ahead. And you're nodding, Jukka. Are you planning for that already?
Yeah, of course, this is an issue what we are investigating, and we have I think that's every biogas producer think about that, and yeah, but nothing more.
Nothing more. It's secret. Talk to him about that later. Let's talk about governments a little bit. You have a new government in France. You have a very dynamic environment minister. It looks like they're supporting this. How important has that been? Paris was one factor. The government itself, how important has that been?
But it has been critical, but otherwise nothing would have happened, I think. So yes, it has been critical for that market to take off, but it shouldn't be the only way that market should be sustainable. It should be self-sustainable in a way. So what we believe is that growing, and with the effect of scale, we should be able to somewhat find some kind of economic rationale which make that business to be a standalone business. But for every type of new business, I think it's necessary that somewhat there are some kind of support from government and policies.
Long term. Jukka, you said that it's the buyers are more important than the government, but I know the Finnish government is very strong on pushing the green agenda in the industry.
Of course, this is very important as well. And when we think about the subsidies and support from government, I think this is the speed. It gives the speed for the development, and it's very important now.
They even just a few weeks ago announced money to convert cars to biogas from the government, and it's something we tried here in Sweden. It hasn't really taken off, but it's.
We'll see what happens.
Yes, exactly.
It's a new industry also in Finland, this car conversion industry, and we have some companies doing that already now, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Anybody here working with car conversion? Because he needs more contacts. We'll
Welcome
deal with
to Finland.
that. Yes. Core, just to round off, Sweden, you say, is in the forefront. Do you see the same long-term policies as we are seeing emerging in France and emerging in Finland? Is the same thing happening in Sweden?
I don't understand the question.
Do you see the same long-term initiatives from the government, the long-term direction that you were asking about?
Yes.
You see it?
I see, yes. For France, we see that you are developing these kind of strategies. For Finland, I think you should stay. That's my personal view. You have a long-term, stable policy using taxes, not only for renewable energy, but also for energy efficiency. To implement the energy efficiency directive, stay on that path.
Yeah, and Sweden with taxes, Sweden should. The government says that EU doesn't allow it.
It works.
Yeah.
People are used to it. Industry is used to it. So stay on that path. And you
the
have to,
Swedish
some way or another, you have to overcome the bridge between the current cost of fossil and the current cost of renewables, and tax exemptions. You pay what you tax what you don't want, and you have a tax exemption for what you do want. That's one of the ways in doing it.
It sounds like such an easy solution, but the Swedish government says that Brussels doesn't accept that. It's against the state aid rules. But you think that there is a possibility to still use it more? Well,
it's against state aid rules. On the other hand, this is the direction that the European Union wants to go with the clean energy package. So I think you have people like Bas Eickhout. I told it you yesterday evening. People like Bas Eickhout, the rapporteur for the clean energy package. You will have him on your side in kind of the way you are going to. And the state aid rules are more a lawyer type of debate. But I think some way or another you should go in that direction, and you should be able to use the tax exemptions for it, and have a debate on it with the European Commission. But not only the state aid people, but also the environmental and clean energy people together.
Bas is a parliamentarian in the European Parliament. Cora, I think we should have you coming up talking to the Swedish government a bit on the state aid rules, because there are possibilities, not only problems.
There are possibilities, yes.
Well, thank you very much. Unless there is any other question, you've given us food for thought. And if I say Lachout, almost.
Almost.
Yeah. Your last name. Thank you so much. And please, if you leave the stage, we'll start talking about strategy in Sweden. And while we switch, we have some microphone switching. We have a microphone somewhere that